You know, there's no doubt this is a beautiful planet. I personally have seen some breathtaking sights. One such memory is being on the summit of Mount Vesuvius, looking into the smoking volcano, and then turning around and viewing the Bay of Naples from the same point of observation. I've been on several occasions to the Black Hills of South Dakota, one of my favorites, and then on to Mount Rushmore. I've been to the Devil's Tower of Close Encounters of the Third Kind fame, and many more places of beauty in Europe. And I imagine many of you have seen similar, if not greater, panoramas. There's no arguing for the beauty of planet Earth. But despite this magnificence, there is something wrong, something terribly wrong with this place.
Because something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong. Something's wrong. Something's terribly, terribly wrong.
Something's terribly wrong. Something's wrong. Something's terribly, terribly wrong. Seems so weird on the one hand, mankind mired in dreamland.
Even if only some of it's true. We're up the creek without a paddle.
How can you head for the border when there's a new world order?
Seems more like a new world disorder. If you know what I mean.
Do you sense it? Do you feel it in your bones? Well, there is no real need for intuition or clairvoyance to discern this problem. You just need to open your eyes and look around. Forever wars, genocide, murder, torture, child abuse, human trafficking, corruption. You name it, humans engage in it. So is there anything to be done? What about our politicians? Can they help? I'm kidding. They are largely responsible for much of this mess in the first place. Have you seen the political chaos in UK and Europe of late? Not forgetting here in the US, of course, though it is improving under Trump somewhat. Political chaos seems to be everywhere. We now have the Farage debacle in the UK. He promises one thing and then says another on illegal immigration, backtracking on policies and silencing critics. Many thought he was going to save Britain. It looks like that's not going to happen anytime soon. Was Elon Musk right about Farage when he called for him to be replaced as Reform UK's leader? It looks that way. You can forget about Comrade Starmer and his circus. Then there's Trump. Even he's doing things that are making me uneasy. I thought he was anti-war, but he continues to fight for Netanyahu. I figured he would. It's what the US does, after all, fight Israel's battles for them. Despite the obvious genocide taking place in Gaza at the hands of Netanyahu. And this is not letting Hamas or the Houthis off the hook either. They're as guilty as anyone. I'm talking about the innocent casualties. Trump has also endorsed Senator Lindsey Graham for re-election. Now that did shock me. Graham is one of the biggest warmongers in the US government, a belligerent neocon, a rhino, Republican in name only. Trump was even booed, by MAGA no less, when he announced his endorsement of Graham. That's what MAGA folk think of this Senate snake. And who can forget the signal messenger farce which exposed in real time the US attack on that Yemeni target? A block of flats containing innocent women and children, all to get one man. the top missile guy, who it turns out wasn't even there. Let's be frank, this is a war crime in breach of the Geneva Convention. And look at who was involved. Vice President J.D. Vance, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, all exulting in the destruction. A pointless calamity for the innocent, women and children. Nothing changes where war is concerned. Trump seems to be rattling the saber of war just like everyone else. There are no saviors in politics. How many times have we been attracted by loquacious, smooth-tongued, articulate, eloquent politicians just like Tulsi Gabbard, only to be let down and stabbed in the back by the very same? Though I still think Trump is doing better than the previous clowns, for now at least. But he is, in my opinion, of course, making huge mistakes on the international war scene. Then look at France and the banning of Marine Le Pen from politics for 5 years, found guilty for supposedly embezzling EU funds. How convenient. It's obvious what's going on here. She was the favourite for winning the 2027 election against that creep Macron. And I'm beginning to wonder if even the illusion of democracy has died in France. The EU establishment is in full panic. Everywhere you look, the world seems to be on the brink of civil unrest, mostly down to our incompetent and corrupt politicians, by the way, but also partly due to far-left extremist lunatics. Is history raising its ugly head again? This French lawfare is a sign of things to come. We've seen this in the US. Luckily they lost. But I believe you will see it in the UK also. It's just a matter of time. And take note of how many people are asking if civil war is coming to the EU and the UK. These are unprecedented times. The second seal of revelation indeed. Is it any wonder I believe this planet to be a prison? Oh, there are no physical bars or walls. It's a prison of the mind, a mental confinement, a place where we are tricked into reincarnating. Yes, I'm an unabashed reincarnationist. The evidence for it is overwhelming. This prison is where the jailers restrict the memory of who we really are. I've said several times in the past that everything is down to perception. And our perception is vulnerable to being stage managed. I wonder, are you by any chance an expert at analysing politics? Maybe you are skilled in breaking down the nuances of specific policies with laser-like precision, revealing political agendas and their likely outcomes. That's an enviable gift. I wish I had it. I watch such people all the time, individuals I feel I can trust. I think it's important to be well informed and from more than one political perspective. This is why I trust journalists who are few in number, who show no political agenda, only the truth. That's all I want. You can keep your politically biased commentary and propaganda. Just give me the unsullied truth, even if I might not like it. The truth often hurts, but it's essential because the truth sets us free. Well, how does it do that? The truth sets us free because it shatters the chains of illusion, fear, and control. When we live in ignorance, whether by deception, manipulation, or our own unwillingness to open our eyes, we are not truly free. We are guided by forces we do not understand, reacting to shadows instead of reality. But truth is the light that reveals the path forward. Throughout history, those in power have sought to obscure the truth because a free-thinking, informed people are dangerous to oppression. Tyrants fear truth because it exposes their lies. Warmongers fear truth because it reveals the real cost of their wars. Corporations fear truth because it unmasks their exploitation. The moment we see clearly, when we strip away the propaganda, the distractions, the narratives designed to divide and control us, the moment we do that, we reclaim our power. You see, truth empowers us. It allows us to make choices not out of fear, but out of understanding. It gives us the ability to stand firm against injustice, to challenge systems that profit from deception, and to build something real, something just, something human, something that's ours, not like today's inequality before the law kind of justice. That's the cabal's sense of integrity and their way of showing their place in humanity. They believe they deserve to be at the apex of the pyramid, manipulating the rest of us. But as I said, truth is not always comfortable. It demands that we confront hard realities, that we question our beliefs we once held sacred, that we accept responsibility. Yet, even in discomfort, truth is liberation. Because when we embrace it, we are no longer puppets of someone else's story. We become the authors of our own. And that, my friends, that is why the truth sets us free. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. Because once we have our eyes opened, we can never be controlled in the same way again. This is why I will never watch corporate media. To do that would be akin to buying into corporate exploitation. You know the kind of thing, when they talk about the safety of their products, especially the food and drug industry. Much of it is laced with poison. I read the other day that 38% of teens in the US are obese. 38%. 50% of adults are overweight. This commercial abuse is no less true of the corporate news media. We're so toxic, venomous, ever-fermenting discord. Sometimes we can be so taken up with the party politics of our specific locality and become so myopic in the evaluation of events, we fail to see the big picture. Being an expert in geopolitics as opposed to local is essential, because when we look beyond the parochial view and consider events from a wider perspective, we see a bigger picture. And from that broader vantage point, we can discern patterns that are not visible from the blinkered close-up perspective. Things we thought were only happening locally suddenly are shown to be occurring worldwide. Now, I said in the last video that I would look more closely into the cabal and secret societies. And while I will do that as I proceed, I've done some thinking since then. I do that on occasions. Sometimes I will use my brain, what's left of it. But I've decided not to waste time and effort on what many people already know exists. But since we are so close to a possible societal meltdown, I want to pass go and look at the outcome of the secret organization's agenda and the implications for us. I think this is more important. We can look at the cabal as we journey past goal and proceed to our real goal. So what is this real goal I'm talking about? Well, it's the obvious march towards a new world order. I'm the Grumpy Grandpa. When we take time out of our busy schedule to look around us, what are we looking at when we see all the chaos and bedlam unfolding? Well, if you look close enough and with a discerning eye, you will see the managed decline of Western civilization. Yes, you heard me correctly. The decay is overseen. It's so obvious you might even find yourself asking if 1984's Orwellian dystopia is already with us. Then you must wonder how long it will take to become fully established and what we can expect. The one major aspect you can be sure will materialize is authoritarian control and the various means of that control. Just look how far down the dystopian road we have already travelled. Look at the banking system for one thing. That's a video all on its own waiting to happen. How many people have been debanked the last few years because of their opinions or beliefs? Do you see how the bankers may control your ability to buy and sell? This leads to the cashless society being promoted. When I was home in Wales last year, I was shocked to see how many places no longer accept cash. I'm talking mainly of coffee shops. But the trend is there. The next step will be digital currency and all the centralization control of that means of exchange. Linked to that will be social control by way of social credits. China presently engages in that means of control. There's a shocker. We are seeing Orwellian censorship on social media already, even to the extent of jailing UK citizens and the Comrade Stammers Watch for posting undesirable, hurtful comments, so-called, while grooming gangs get away scotch-free with their rape of young girls. Then there is transhumanism, AI, privacy violations through surveillance, data collection and tracking, algorithmic bias and deepfake technology, all pointing to a centralized control system of the masses. And as I have said in the past, it's so easy to control the moo cows, unless the moo cows begin to wake up. And this is happening, folks. Hence the civil unrest the world over. People are beginning to wake up to the fact that democracy is nothing more than the illusion of choice, and that when politicians speak of hope, they are really talking about hopium, that drug of the people that keeps us sedated, malleable and compliant. They particularly deliver this hopium to the vein just before elections with their hollow promises. Change, deliverance, hope. War won't happen under my watch, folks, as the drug is injected. But even the politicians are becoming worried about the levels of social unrest because they are mostly unaware of the managed decline taking place behind the curtain. They are just puppets, nothing more. But not all. Some are in on the global plan. When we look more closely at government incompetence and waste, is it incompetence we are seeing, or is it corruption? A bit of both, I imagine. This is what Doge under the Trump administration is uncovering. A mixture of the two. But you can be sure the corrupt element will hide behind the incompetence label, of course. One thing that stands out, if you are paying close attention, is the march towards globalism, a centralized government, a new world order.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach.
The President George Bush has talked time and time again about a new world order, and this is the best chance to begin to establish the new world order. And that's why the stakes are so high.
But it is the awareness itself that will drive the change. And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about a new world order, about a defining moment in history.
To achieve this, we must be brainwashed, indoctrinated, and this is happening big time in our schools and universities. Where do you think wokeism came from? Transgenderism. They must control our belief systems and then foster conflict between those differing viewpoints. Enter the corporate mainstream media. Take, for example, the phrase divide and conquer. This has its roots in ancient political and military strategy. It describes a method of breaking up a larger unified group into smaller, weaker factions that can be more easily controlled or defeated. The Romans were masters of this tactic, using it to expand their empire by turning potential allies against each other. Later, rulers and colonial powers employed the same strategy to maintain dominance over vast territories by fostering internal divisions. But let's consider who benefits from division. It's certainly not us simple folk. Throughout history, those in power have used this approach not just in warfare, but in governance, economics, and even social movements. They understood that people divided by fear, suspicion, by artificial lines of difference, are less capable of resisting oppression. They pit neighbor against neighbor, worker against worker, communities against themselves, because unity is dangerous to the status quo, to the cabal's agenda. For those of us who reject war and who see the cost of conflict not in battle lines, but in the shattered lives of the innocent, the antidote to divide and conquer is solidarity. It's recognizing that the divisions imposed upon us by nations, by leaders, by the architects of war, are illusions meant to keep us from seeing our shared humanity, our spiritual oneness. So if warlords and empire builders have long relied on division we must counter them with unity. We must reject their artificial boundaries and refuse to fight wars that only serve their interests. We must stand together across borders, across backgrounds, across artificial boundaries, and across political fences as one force against the engines of war. Because in the end, the greatest act of resistance against divide and conquer is to stand undivided. And with the large numbers of people who are beginning to wake up to the cabal's guile, we might just stand a chance against them. And I emphasize might. But only if we unify. Only then can we tell them to shove their new world order where the sun don't shine. Because if they can keep us divided and fighting among ourselves, they will push a war agenda, because for them, war is its own valuable commodity. The existence of violent conflict between different groups of people is indispensable to these psychopaths. The cost of conflict we see, that is the killing of innocents, is nothing to them, because the value of divide and conquer supersedes everything. It bolsters their power over us, not to mention sending billions of dollars to the war machine. Now, I know I can become political on times. And my politics mostly leans to the right, though I have some left to centre and liberal views. And there is a reason why I am right-leaning more than the others. It's because, at the moment, it's the political position which has the most interest in individual freedom. I'm all about individual liberties, provided they don't impinge, of course, on others' freedoms. Liberalism used to hold individual liberties as sacrosanct. It's in the name, liberal, liberty. No longer does it hold that ideal. Liberalism now emphasizes groupthink. And forget the sharing of new ideas. Step out of line from the liberal ideological point of view and you're marginalized or cancelled. Liberalism has become a cult. And if you are a member of that cult, step out of line and you're done. I've listened to so many former liberals talk about that, revealing their own experiences. The left are now all but communists, for the most part, and we all know that ideology is totalitarian in its principles. There are some on the moderate left that are still open to discussing different ideas, but mostly we have the divide and conquer mentality playing out. I just thought I needed to make my position plain after what I have been advocating. There is nothing I would like better than to have the different political sides come together and discuss ideas in a reasonable way and unite against the New World Order. But good luck with that. Here's something for you to mull over. Now, I've been thinking that my utter distaste for authoritarianism must be due to a previous life where I have the remnants of a memory of being on the wrong side of a totalitarian state. That would account for my absolute disdain for the ideology and why I rebelled so much during the COVID lockdowns and mandates. Just my opinion, of course. So, can we unite? Now that's the million-dollar question. Maybe, if we can get enough people to awaken. That's the key. However, society is so fractured, uniting will be an uphill, almost impossible struggle, I fear. And the only way to make people awaken is to expose these controlling parasites for what they are, or let them expose themselves through elite overreach. Give them enough rope to hang themselves, as the saying goes. They did that with COVID. Many woke up after that tyrannical period. The elite kind of shot themselves in the foot there. There is so much stacked against us. Decades of mind manipulation via the media and mindless TV shows. Years of indulging in sensory pleasures via recreational drugs and self-interest has rendered the sheeple sort of comatose and immune to feeling a sense of responsibility for others. They've become egocentric, narcissistic, self-absorbed. All planned, I might add. And I've been guilty of some of that myself. I'm not afraid to face the truth anymore. For example, with the objectives of this channel, I have owned up previously and confessed that this channel is all about my struggle with age-related memory issues, insofar as it helps me remember what I have read and gives me the opportunity to at least try and articulate my beliefs. And that's the only reason I engage in making these videos, as opposed to my aim being to help others wake up to the changes and dangers we face. Maybe if I made that my goal, or the main purpose of this channel, I would be able to lend my voice to the cause more efficiently. But having said that, isn't it true that someone might just get prodded enough after stumbling across one of my videos to get started on the wake-up experience as a side effect? So essentially, it's much the same thing. I just need to see it that way in my perception and believe that's the case. Now, we are going to talk about universal laws in a future video. What I do know is that the awakening needed to win this war of illusion is more than just waking up to the reality of behind-the-scenes puppeteers and Earth-run as a prison. It's awakening to our true self. And I've touched on this before in another video. I do believe this is the way out of the illusion of prison. All I can do is keep reminding us of this fact. We are more than we think, much more. And I guess what I'm endeavoring to do in my ponderings is explain the daydream we are wrestling with, to fit all this craziness into the reality of illusion and what it is. I've been doing some very interesting research on that. And to help us start this journey, in closing, I want to share with you briefly 3 principles of the law of vibration I have recently learned and I'm trying to apply to myself. The first is, when you care for others, everything improves. Secondly, it doesn't matter where you're at. It matters only what you believe. And thirdly, when I change how I look at the world changes how it looks at me. The particulars of these 3 principles and how I'm going to apply them to myself will be for another video. But in the meantime, wow, I have a lot of thinking to do. Ouch. Until the next time.